So, the reason I created this conference and this summit today, which all of you are here to be involved with, thank you so much. I want you to rethink health, because really we're all hitting a reality check, right? We've talked all day about, some of the issues that are really prevalent in society these days, and particularly cancer, right? Half, if not more, of all Americans will get cancer if we don't change our lifestyles and the way we do things. So I want you to rethink health. We are far sicker than most developed countries, despite spending more per capita on health care. But what is it all called? What did we learn earlier? Sick care.
Sick care.
We don't talk about health care anymore in the US. We talk about sick care, because that's what it is. It's a cycle to keep us sick. So, what do? They first create the problem, and then they sell the solution. It is the world's most devious, but most brilliant, most greedy cycle of sickness. Medical system is focused on treating the symptoms. A lot of people went over this already. And then I had to put my favorite slide in here again, because this is just, after today, do you understand how brilliant Aldous Huxley was when he said, medical science has made such tremendous progress, there is hardly a healthy human left. So America's healthcare system, this is it, I'm going to drop the bomb, is the leading cause of death in America. I'm going to say it again, because if you leave today with anything to tell your family, to tell your friends, anything that sticks in your head when you try to make those lifestyle changes that we probably all need to make. America's healthcare system is the leading cause of death in the country. So if we don't rethink health, there is going to be a serious reality check. So all of these tips and suggestions that we saw today, that we heard from all of the brilliant speakers, we need to really take those in and make changes. So many people are not going to believe that slide, right? Because it's not what the CDC will tell you. But the proof is there in front of your eyes if you put it together and you connect the dots. So this is a study from The Lancet. Adverse drug reactions remain a major cause of death. This was published in 1998. The stats are through the roof now. But I wanted to give something from the journal. Third leading cause of death in the US. Most doctors won't tell you. Okay? So anyone who follows me on Facebook, what's the number 3 leading cause of death according to Johns Hopkins study? Doctors. Medical errors. Medical errors. So this Johns Hopkins study states more than 250,000 people a year, 250,000 only in the US, die from medical errors. We're talking about surgeries gone wrong, we're talking about hospital-acquired infections, we're talking about mishandling of drugs, of prescription drugs, getting the wrong one, all of this kind of thing. Medical errors. Other reports claim that it could be close to 500,000 Americans dying from medical errors. But you will not hear this from the CDC, you won't hear it from the government, you won't hear it from pharma, you won't hear it from your doctor. And you sure won't hear it at the hospital, where a good number of these deaths occur. Because they're about profits. They're not really about patients. So we all have to keep that in mind as we fight back against that, and we try to be healthy in this sick system. So, one of them, they won't talk about, but in England they did. So chemotherapy, right? We heard a lot about it from Dr. John and some other speakers today. The number 1, or actually number 2, cancer, right? Everybody might get cancer, they say, in this room, but not after today, right? But what happens when cancer patients go to the hospital? Chemotherapy. Because Dr. John said 350,000 per patient. I've seen numbers as high as 1 million per patient for cancer. It is over 300 billion a year moneymaker for pharma. But as we know, poisoning the body, right? Because cancer is a disease of basically the body's over-poisoned by either emotions, toxicity, radiation, these types of things. chemotherapy is not really the way to go. But you would never hear that in the US. Luckily, the NHS in England actually did a study on it. And they studied lung cancer patients and breast cancer patients, and they studied the death rates 30 days within chemo starting. And they estimated that half of cancer patients didn't die from cancer. They died from chemotherapy. You would never hear this in the US, but in England, they printed it. So, I'm going to estimate that a lot of those deaths that are attributed to cancer were probably from chemotherapy or the radiation, right? Because we can't slash and burn, which is the allopathic medical way to treat cancer, slash and burn. Well, a lot of people are not going to be able to handle that. So, again, America's leading cause of death is the health system. So what do? We have to step out of the system. That's what all day has been today about, so I don't think I have to convince you anymore. We have to take back our health. So, no magic pill, health is in our own hands. I know you guys are knowing this by now. More of this, as all of the speakers talked about, and a whole lot less of this. But what else do we need to do? There are the three main causes of disease. One, overtoxicity. We are inundated with synthetic chemicals in our bodies, in our environments, all around us since the Industrial Revolution. And our bodies have not evolved to be able to process the synthetic chemicals out of our system. They get lodged in our body tissues, they cause inflammation. So the root cause of most disease, right, is inflammation. Overtoxicity is a major cause. Number two cause, nutritional deficiencies. Our food does not have the same nutrition as it did 50 years ago. So you eat a tomato and you think, oh well, I ate this whole tomato, it's, I'm probably good for my vegetable servings for the day. That tomato has half of the nutrients in it as it did 50 years ago, because our soil has been depleted by pesticides, chemicals, or with the industrial farming, we're not giving the soil enough time to regenerate. So, we have nutritional deficiencies. A lot of the speakers went over this, so I'm not going to go into detail about this. Another nutritional deficiency you might not think about is the sun. What does the sun give us?
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D. There is a lot of information out there on the importance of vitamin D, yet still people are buying sunscreen, walking out the sun, putting on loads of toxins while they do it, and thinking that the sun causes cancer. Right? There are a lot of ways that we get tricked as consumers. But this one literally blows my mind. Somebody created sunscreen, decided, okay, well let's make people fear the sun, right? Okay, we've existed thousands and thousands of years with the sun, right? We need it. It synthesizes vitamin D processes in our body. Just like with plants, it synthesizes chlorophyll. If you take plants out of the sun, what happens? They die. You take people out of the sun, what happens? So not only have they feared you into disconnecting from something that is keeping us alive, then they sell you a product which causes more cancer. Lack of vitamin D could be one of the causes of cancer. And then they sell you a product to, basically add more toxins into your body and create possibly cancer, right? And as Dr. John talked earlier, what's a great way to make a lot of money? You create a disease, and then you keep pumping in the toxins, right? So, to me, sunscreen is one of the biggest tricks that has been played on Americans, right? We need the sun, we need vitamin D. So, nutritional deficiencies. Another thing I'm going to go into, we're mineral deficient, right? And a lot of people don't talk about this, and a lot of people don't think about this. But we used to get our water from the mountains. As it comes down through the rocks and all the processes, it pulled in a lot of minerals. It used to have a high mineral content in it. What happens when you industrialize the water system? It takes all the minerals out, minerals that we need. We're highly mineral deficient these days. And then what do? Much like toxic sunscreen, they pour chemicals into the water system, like chlorine, and pharmaceuticals. High levels of pharmaceuticals are now in water systems because they don't filter those out, right? They just filter out the minerals. So we really have to be careful with our water intake and our mineral intake. So a lot of us are nutritionally deficient in a lot of vitamins, right? Vitamin D as well as vitamin C and other things, because we're not pulling in the proper nutrition from the food anymore. We're also mineral deficient. What else do we need to do with all those chemicals they're pumping into the water system? We all need to be filtering our water. That I didn't hear anyone talk about today. We need to be filtering our water through really, really strict and stringent processes, because there's a high level of industrial chemicals in there, and we need to remineralize it once we filter it. And there are great ways. You can go all over Google and find really good ways to do that. But these things need to be talked about too, because number 2 reason for disease, nutritional deficiencies and mineral deficiencies are included in that. Number 3, emotions. Susan talked a lot about that. John talked a lot about that as well. Emotions play a role. So, I studied biochemistry when I was in college, so I make this joke with my friends. I'm going to start this blog called The Chemical Lady one day, because I'm kind of obsessed with toxins and chemicals, and keeping them out of my environment. So I'm going to talk about that today, mostly. The Mayo Clinic website, I want to revisit this because so many people, we've been a little bit brainwashed, right? The chemical industry is hugely powerful. The pharmaceutical industry, basically they're one and the same. Medical industry, all of this. They don't want you to think about chemicals, right? Synthetic chemicals. They say, oh, but chemicals make up our environment, they make up our body, they make up water, they make up air. That's ridiculous. Chemicals are fine. Okay, there is a huge difference between natural chemicals and synthetic chemicals. And our bodies cannot process synthetic chemicals, particularly in the overload we have going on around us these days. So, what happens when we can't process things, when inflammation, the chemicals lodge in our body and cause inflammation? Well, it causes cancer. Cancer is a mutation of genes after birth. Cancer is not genetic, period. Don't let anybody tell you that. You do not have to get it. Due to most often to environmental toxins, smoking, radiation, toxic chemicals, pollution. Autoimmune disorders, much the same. Most due to environmental factors. But the media doesn't want to talk about chemicals. And, pharmaceutical company and the doctors, none of them want you to talk about chemicals and the inflammation that's causing the chronic inflammation in your body, because they're selling them all, right? There's a lot of money to be made in it. But I'm the chemical lady, so I'm going to talk about them. All right. Best defense against disease again. Healthy, strong immune system, not overloaded with toxins. All right, how do we be healthy? So again, back to nutrition. We need to make sure we're getting enough of the right nutrition, right? So we need to up our vegetable level. That whole the food pyramid needs to be turned on its head, because we need a lot more vegetables these days and fruit to keep up our nutrients. And I'll talk about the meat in a minute. Michelle did a number on it earlier. We need to take care of our body and stress, right? And our emotions, right? Because that can cause inflammation as well. We need to minimize our toxic exposures. So I'm going to spend a minute on here because, toxins are my thing. There are a lot of toxins in our environment that we never think about, right? So we talked about the toxins in water and the importance of filtering our water system. In our kitchen, who uses Tefal pans?
What kind of pan?
Tefal, nonstick.
Teflon?
Teflon. Sorry, goes by multiple names. Good. Okay. There's the one. She's like, okay. Throw them out. All right. So the chemicals are now all over our kitchen, right? So not even in the cleaning products, which I'll get to in a minute, but in our pans that we cook with. So nonstick chemicals lining the pans. Pretty much almost, 80% of pans sold are now lined with chemicals that are leaching into the food as we cook it. So at high heats, these chemicals go right into our food. Plastic is another thing. Anything, you put any of these synthetic chemicals, plastic, the Teflon, you heat it, and those chemicals are going to leach into the air, and they're also going to leach into the food. We should not be microwaving food. That's another issue, the radiation. We especially should not be microwaving in plastic. So we should not actually be keeping really any of our food in the plastic. We need to go back to 60, 70 years ago when they had glass. And there are options, cheap options, good options for glass containers. So we need to be careful of the Teflon pans in the kitchen. We need to be careful of plastic, especially heating in plastic. We also need to be careful of the cleaners, right? The entire house can be cleaned with baking soda and vinegar. So who's gonna make sure you don't know that? All of the chemical industry and all of the products that they push out there. Clorox, Febreze. Oh, there's some new studies on Febreze. That's a good one. Check out my website and my timeline on Facebook. I do a lot on all the chemicals in our environment. These things, anything with a synthetic fragrance as well. So any of these, let's see, petroleum-based candles are a bad one, but also any of these air fresheners. All of these things have chemicals in them, and they all add up. So many times I hear, oh, but everything causes cancer these days. Oh, there's chemicals in everything, Brandy. I give up, okay? It is true, we are inundated with chemicals. But if we don't have to have cancer, okay? If we take control of our environments, what we put on our bodies, what we put in our house, the mattresses we sleep on, what's on our clothes, if we take care of our environment and minimize our exposure, we're doing half the battle. Half, maybe we're not ever going to be able to avoid, right? There's air pollution, things like that. But we need to control what we can, and we need to minimize what we can, or we are going to be a statistic, and not a good one. So, minimizing toxic exposures, chemicals in beauty products, huge issue, right? So this is one of the things that I think is really funny. Formaldehyde. We all kind of know it as a cancer-causing chemical, right? And there's all these stories, Chinese wood floors, avoid them, Aldi's taking all formaldehyde-containing, was it Walmart or Aldi? Anyway, taking all formaldehyde-containing products off the shelves causes cancer. It's one of the main ingredients that causes cancer in smoking. It is in a lot of body care products, particularly nail polish. Sometimes it's in cleaning products as well. Toothpaste. Yeah. Titanium dioxide is another popular one in toothpaste, and that again is a heavy metal that Dr. John covered. So we really need to be watching out for all of these things. Guess what you can brush your teeth with?
Baking soda.
Baking soda. And coconut oil. Guess what you can use as a moisturizer? Coconut oil. Guess what you can use as a 10 SPF sunscreen? Coconut oil. Right? So what